Hello, hello. I am Lee Forrester, and I am so excited to be here today with Jessica Nabongo. Hello, Jessica.
Amber.
Yes, I'm going to introduce Jessica, but let me just start out with telling you the reason that we're here today. So I'm a purpose-driven entrepreneur. I'm a certified life and business coach, a positive psychology educator, and multimedia host. And I'm the author of a book called Blooming with Intentional, a personal mastery workbook for teens and young adults. Today, I am talking with Jessica because she is an exemplary human being who, in her story, has overcome the no's or the things that people say that you can't do, and she has just really accomplished some amazing things in her life and her career, and in her travels, which we're going to talk about. So I want to start off by telling you a bit about Jessica. As a first-generation American, Jessica was born and raised in Detroit, Michigan, my city as well. Yes. Jessica was raised by Ugandan parents, and she attended St. John's University in New York, where she earned her undergraduate degree in English literature. In just a few years after college, she started and ended a career in pharmaceutical sales, moved to Japan to teach English, and completed a graduate degree at the London School of Economics. She captured her experiences along the way, honing her amazing photography skills. As her career path changed, Jessica realized that travel, writing, and photography continued to show up as vehicles of self-expression and were essential parts of her life, leading to the creation of her site, The Catch Me If You Can. She uses her blog to share her story and build a community. She also created Jet Black, a boutique luxury travel company that hosts group trips and curates itineraries to countries in Africa, Central and South America, and the Caribbean. Her work as a travel writer and entrepreneur has led to speaking opportunities around the world. And in 2017, Jessica set out on a 2.5-year global odyssey. And by October of 2019, Jessica Nabongo became the first documented Black woman to visit every country in the world. Can you even believe that you did that? Like, when I read are you like, that's me? When I read your bio?
I mean, I finished, over 6 months ago, and I'm still like, did that happen? No, that didn't happen.
Oh my God. It did. It really did. And you got the pictures to prove it. I mean, when you talk about honing your photography skills, my gosh, we got to splice some pictures into this because you have some of the most stunning photography I have ever seen. So welcome, Jessica. I'm just so proud to know you and to speak with you today. And I want to just start out by spotting some of the character strengths and the virtues that I hear in your story. So when I read over your biography, I hear zest. I hear a zest for life, this excitement of life, and a curiosity of the world, and really the bravery of being able to travel and go to all of these countries. And on top of that, prudence, because you have to act carefully when you're there and plan with the future in mind. And I also notice and witness an appreciation of beauty and excellence in all of the pictures that you post and the cultures that you submerge yourself in, that it's like the little things that you see, that you catch with your eye, that you share with us, your followers, and with the world, that really just make us kind of live vicariously through you while you're in your travels. So what are some of the strengths that you see in yourself, and how have they helped you accomplish what you have so far?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think one of the biggest things is definitely resilience. I dealt with a lot of mental health issues in high school and university. So, I always like to remind young adults and teenagers, it gets better. It seems super hard while we're in it, but it will get better. You just have to power through and find that light, and find people around you who vibrate, who have that positive vibration to help you get through it. But yeah, after dealing with that, I think for me in my early 20s, like you said, like I was kind of bouncing around. not in a bad way, because I feel like when I had my pharmaceutical career for 2 years, I did incredibly well. I was promoted twice and was up for a third promotion right before I quit. Then I went and I taught English. So that was a little bit random, but it gave me the opportunity to live abroad. And that really stretched me, right? I had never been to Asia. And the first time I landed in Asia, I landed in Japan. I was moving there, so that stretched me in ways that I never could have imagined. And then I decided to stay abroad for an additional 6 years after that, which included doing my master's at the London School of Economics, working for the United Nations, working for an NGO in rural Benin, and then moving back to DC after all of that was said and done. So I worked for the UN in Italy. So I lived in Italy for almost 3 years. And I think what it is a resilience and adaptability. So I can adapt to any environment. Now, we're in the middle of a pandemic. And a lot of people have checked on me like, oh my God, how are you surviving? You're not traveling. And I'm like, I'm fine. Actually, I'm very grateful, and I'm finding gratitude, which I think is incredibly important. I'm finding gratitude in this moment because I wouldn't have given myself this break. So I appreciate that, but it's really about adapting to any situation that I'm in. So if I'm traveling in the Middle East, and I have to cover my head, I cover my head. I don't fight it. If I need to change the way that I'm dressing while visiting someone else's country, I don't fight it. I just adapt to the situation to make myself comfortable and to make those that are receiving me comfortable. So definitely resilience, adaptability, and from what I hear from others, a fearlessness. I think, fear is definitely irrational. Like, that is the facts. Like, people who are afraid of spiders or planes or whatever, it's an irrational fear that can be really debilitating. I think because I'm such a rational person, I don't have a lot of fear. And because, a lot of people say, wow, you traveled to 89 countries by yourself, many in the Middle East and Africa, you weren't afraid. And I'm like, no, I wasn't. I'm not afraid of people. So what else is there to fear? Like, if you don't fear people, there's really nothing to fear about traveling to a new country, in my mind. So those would probably be the biggest things: resilience, adaptability, and fearlessness.
So are those strengths that naturally occurred for you, or did you have to develop those along the way? And if so, what other strengths have you had to develop that you may not have had when you set out on your journeys?
That's interesting. Resilience, I think it definitely built up through going through like challenges of depression, but still having to like exist in the world. And whether it was having to go to class or having to do exams or having to work, right? A lot of people go to work every single day and they're depressed. So I think the resilience came through existing in the world while suffering with depression. As far as adaptability, I really think it's because from a young age, I traveled with my family. So my parents are from Uganda, and we would go home sometimes, like, we would go home for like a month, and we would spend a lot of time in the village. So even before getting to the village, I couldn't dress in Uganda how I dress here. So I already had to change, and I knew that, right? So like my parents were like, okay, you're wearing this, this, and this, whatever. And then being in the village, there's no running water or electricity. And so I would just have to adjust. It wasn't like, oh no, I don't want to stay here putting up a fight. It's just like, oh, you're in the village. This is what life is like. You adjust. So for me, I'm always,
You were about 6 at that when you first started
so
going?
yeah, the first time I went, I was 6. Yeah, I was 6, and then when did we go back? And then I was 12, and then another time. Yeah, so multiple times growing up. And yeah, you learn to adjust. And so I think because of that, it was like, okay, I'm here at home in Detroit. Okay, I'm here at home in Uganda. It feels different. And so for me, I think that it came from a young age, so that wherever I am. And whatever I need to do to be there, I do that. And yeah, so that came from a young age. And then the fearlessness, I don't know if it's because I'm the baby or what, but I think I have a confidence in knowing that I have safety nets. So when I moved to Japan, I was like, I left my job on a really great note. And I felt like if I got to Japan and it just really didn't work out, I could go back to my job. Fortunately, my mother loves me. And so I know that I can, if anything happens, I can always go back home to her and figure things out. And, you know, I have a network of friends and family that I know if anything happens to me, I know there's a number of people who I can call, whose house I can just go and live in, you know, for the amount of time necessary to do whatever it is to get back on my feet. And so I think creating those safety nets helps with fearlessness. But I think the biggest thing is really that I'm not afraid of people. And, you know, a lot of people will say, oh, you have to earn my trust. For me, it's you have to lose my trust, because I feel like the skepticism it requires more energy. And so I'm all about conserving my energy. So me trying to sort of figure out, are you lying to me? Are you cheating? You know, all of those things. It's a burden on you. It's not a burden on that person. That's just a burden that you're putting on yourself. So that's why I find that I'm very trusting of people. I've traveled with friends who, you know, and to each their own. Let me say that, to each their own. But, you know, people will lock their passports and their money in the safe at the hotel. I've never used a hotel safe. As much as I've traveled, not one single time have I used a hotel safe. You know, because I'm like, I'm trusting. I'm like, why would they throw away their entire job just to steal $100 from me? That doesn't even make sense. You know what I mean? So I think that fearlessness is really just because I trust people, and I think of myself as a humanist. I love people. I love humanity, and I believe in us.
Yeah, there's a saying that a ghost knows who to scare, and if you don't have that fear in you, then they're not even attracted to come over and say boo. So
I love that.
I'm
Yeah.
sure that's a part of your energy and what you're attracting. So I hear so much confidence in you as a person and what you've developed. And who was the first person that you recognized believed in you, and about what age were you?
Oh, wow. Definitely my parents, which yeah, maybe some people don't have that, but yeah, I think my parents for sure. But then I think my teachers, and I would say, I mean, I remember Miss Christie in the first grade, a teacher who I don't remember the specific impact, but I can remember loving her. Like, I remember loving that teacher, you know? I remember my kindergarten teacher, Mrs. Ford. Like, I have such beautiful memories of my teachers. And so I imagine, you know, they were kind to me and they helped to push me forward. But yeah, and I think what my parents did for us was they gave us an incredibly long rope, but they also put so many experiences in front of us to choose from. So like at 3, I started playing the piano. And up until 12, I did softball, basketball, ballet, tap, clarinet, percussion, just so many different things. And so I think that by my parents giving us access to so many things, it, number one, made me well-rounded. Number two, made me feel like it's okay if I'm not good at something, because there's so many other things that I can do. And number three, it just showed me that I can have a plurality of experiences and just decide what works best for me.
Yeah, that's amazing. I hear so much of your support system. So I just want to also ask you a bit about the mental health challenges that you faced and your support system and how you got through that.
Oh, that's interesting.
I know that it's a work, it's not like a thing that's over one day, but I hear a lot of the support system that you're mentioning, and I'm guessing that they play a big role in supporting you through your challenges.
I actually don't think they did at all.
Really? Well, let's talk about that. So what gets you? What has supported you?
I think a lot of what it was is that I just wasn't interested in ordinary life. So, you know, I went to private schools, grew up, you know, traveling and like a very middle class family and having access to everything I wanted, and, you know, wearing parasuco and all of those things.
Yes.
All of those things we were wearing in Detroit. And, you know, I was popular and I had good grades and I wasn't happy. And I didn't really, I mean, it became apparent to my parents because things happened and like it was evident to them that I was unhappy. But I don't think I allowed them or even tried to get them to help me. It was definitely like a personal journey, which maybe wasn't the right way to go about it. But I think a lot of what got me out of it was acceptance of myself and making a decision not to let external factors run my life, which is really hard. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Like, for example, growing up dark skinned in America is very difficult, in particular in the Black community. So from preschool to 6th grade, I was in a predominantly white school. And yes, there were a few Black people, but I didn't really feel like my looks or whatever was never really questioned, no one said anything. And granted, we're younger as well. But then moving into an all Black environment between 7th and 12th grade, it was really difficult because it was all about the way you looked. And, being dark skinned in a Black environment, colorism, it wasn't easy. I didn't feel beautiful because of the environment that I was in, not because of people at home or anything like that. It was a direct result of the environment that I was in school. And so I think in my 20s, I was just like, this is what I look like. Hate it or love it. There's literally nothing I can do. So I can be depressed, I can, whatever, but there's nothing I can do. This is just who I am. And so once I got to that point, I was like, that's all I got. And so a lot of people are like, oh, you're so confident. And then I shaved my head and people are like, I can't believe you did that. And it was because I'm just like, this is all I got. I don't really want to like dig into all the accoutrement of, all of these extensions and everything else. I just was kind of like, this is what I got. So this is what I'm going to give the world. And I sort of got to the point of accepting myself for who I was. That was a huge part of it. And then the other thing was I read a lot. And so probably some of the self-help books that I found towards the end of my 20s were really good. One book that I love and I really think changed my life was, it's called The Keys to Success and Happiness by Susie Pearl. And it's basically The Secret. I feel like The Secret as a book there's so many other versions of it by a different name, but it's all the same concept. So I refer to the universe. Some people say God, some people say Allah, some people say Jehovah, whatever it is, it's that universal energy that is wrapping us up in love and making sure we're getting to where we need to go. And I really leaned in and learned how to trust that energy. And I think that's also what brought me out. And honestly, positive thinking, which I know sounds crazy because it sounded crazy to me when people are like, you need to think positive. And I'm like, whatever.
You're talking to the positive psychologist.
I know. And the thing is, I would roll my eyes like, okay, I'm going to get better because I think positively. But it's so true. And it's so crazy. I learned this in 2013. I lived 29 years before I understood that. So I hope that the teenagers and young adults who may see this, I'm like, please don't go as long as I did. But literally 29 years before I realized the power of positive thinking. And now that's what I'm always preaching because it's true. And even when I see myself going into a negative cycle, I stop and I figure out what I need to do to reverse that and get back on the positive train. Because you will see everything will fall apart if you're in a negative cycle. And you also have to be very cautious of other people's energy that's around you, because that can also pull you down into a negative spiral.
It certainly can. So that acceptance is so key. When you said that, it's like, I wish that more of us could be bold enough to just say and accept that this is what it is, even if we believe that this is what it is. And other people often see things in us that we don't see. But at any point, we have to recognize what our strengths are and how we, as you said, lean into them. And I truly believe that when we don't put so much of an emphasis on our external, that we lean more into our internal, into what really makes us special. We came with what's on the outside, but we build with what's on the inside, and that's what really makes a difference. And I wonder, I would even say that you wouldn't be, if you didn't go through some of the challenges that you went through, you wouldn't be who you are. You wouldn't have gone where you've gone, meaning all these countries all over the world and things, because you may have leaned on other more superficial things in your life that didn't take you as far as the as all of the things that have taken you all over the world, help you start jet black, catch me if you can. We can't catch you. You know, I call you Carmen Sandiego. I'm
Yes.
like, you remember that? Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego?
I'm like, can someone let me host a reboot, please?
No, seriously. And I want a reboot of Teen Summit. So there we go. We're putting that out there. All right. So let's talk a bit about the pivots that you've made in your life. One of the quotes that you are known for saying is, life is a consequence of the decisions we make. Choose wisely. So you've made some major pivots in your career. What was the catalyst behind some of these life-changing decisions that you made?
I figured out what I don't like.
Mm.
It's that easy. You know, so what I do have, and I think you kind of mentioned it earlier, is a commitment to excellence. Even if I'm doing something that I do not like, I will do it well. And while doing it well, I am making my exit strategy. Mm-hmm. You know, because I do think, I think that's really important. Another book I love is The Four Agreements. And one of the four agreements is always do your best. And that's real because, again, talking about safety nets, what I do know is every job that I've ever left, I can go back to it because I left on a high note. Mm-hmm. I haven't burned bridges at jobs, you know, and I think that's incredibly important. And also the way you treat people is important because you don't know when people are going to come back around. You don't know who that person may be when they come back around. So I think, yeah, you have to just always do your best. But in that about the pivots, like, I feel like so much of life is spending your time figuring out what you don't like. And the thing about me is if I don't like something, I will not continue to do it. And I said recently, I've sort of mastered the art of letting go. If something doesn't serve me, I'll let it go. I don't care if it's a job, a friend, a man, no matter what it is, I'm going to let it go. And so that's when I find that's when I find the ability to pivot. I think the other thing is we get so caught up, especially in entrepreneurship. People will get so caught up in the thing like, oh my God, well, say you produce this ring, right? And you're like, I love this ring and you can't get this ring anymore. And you're so caught up and you waste 6 months trying to figure out how to source this ring when you could have been doing something else for 6 months. So that's the letting go piece. Sometimes you have to just let go so that you can move forward. And again, I think that's where I know how and when to pivot, when I realize like I don't like something or obsessing over something will keep me stuck. So I think what we've seen coming out of the pandemic, who succeeded? The people who pivoted super quickly. You know, we didn't know how long it's going to last. We don't know how long it's going to last. But the people who are winning are the people who pivoted super quickly instead of like trying to figure out, oh my God, everything is going up in smoke. How do I save this building that I built this business that I built in a very different time? You can't. It's a new time. How are you going to change with the times?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that flexibility is so key. So, you know, a lot of the viewers who are going to see this are youth, are teenagers and young adults. And so with being earlier in their career or not having started their career yet, what advice do you give to someone who's trying to figure out, what do I go to school for? What do I do for a living? I mean, like I look at your start, you started out as a teacher and with English literature and economics, and you've pivoted into the space of travel and entrepreneurship. So knowing that the flexibility is a part of what allowed you to do that, where do you start if you're just beginning?
I think honestly, study something that is of interest to you. Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, coming out of undergrad, which kind of doesn't matter, you just need to have great grades. You need to have really good grades and some extracurricular activities. Mm-hmm. That's what companies are going to be looking for. Wall Street, stopped looking at business majors and started looking at social science majors because they wanted more of the soft skills. So people who studied English literature could go and work on Wall Street. I studied English lit. I started doing pharmaceutical sales. That was my first job out of college. It literally didn't matter what I studied. What mattered is that I had great grades and I had a lot of extracurricular activities. So if you have parents who are like, oh, I want you to be a doctor, go study biology, and you hate biology, you're not going to do well. And then you're not going to do well overall. So I would say do something that you really enjoy doing, and then you can make things fit later. Now, okay, if you want to become a doctor or you want to become a lawyer or an engineer, then yeah, there's very specific things you need to study. But if you aren't clear about exactly what you want to do something you enjoy so that you excel at it.
Mm-hmm. So much good advice. I love it. Yes. Yeah. I hear so much intention in as you speak. And so that leads me to the intention behind why you're doing what you're doing and how you're setting your goals. So let's talk about goals for a bit, because I'm really big on helping people to be specific with setting goals. What does that look like for you?
You're supposed to help me. I don't really have goals in life.
Tell me about that, though. So,
It's so funny because I feel like, number one, after all my child, it's such an American idea to be like, where will you be in 1 year, in 3 years, in 5 years, in 10 years? Like, other people don't really think about life like that. And I think after living abroad for 7 years, my thoughts around goals have changed. Because my goals now are like, do I have enough money to do the things that I want to do?
yeah.
Yes. Okay, I'm done here. Like, you know what I mean? I mean, obviously I have to forecast and make money so that I still have money. But I don't have any huge goals. Like, I own my home. I get to hang out with my friends and family when I want. I wake up every day and I choose my schedule. And that pretty much makes me happy. So my goal in life is just happiness, and my happiness is driven by my freedom. So everything I do is in order to maintain my freedom. Now, the added bonuses are, oh, I have freedom. I can create a platform that inspires people to live out loud, to, achieve their dreams, to maybe go see the world, to view certain countries in the world in a different way. But yeah, I don't really have a goal setting process because I'm a project based person. So like,
I think it's a goal setting process, but it may just be a bit different because you have intention. You have the intentions of what you want and you have the vision, but it's something that is different in your model of how you reach that. So I think you were going to tell me that. So let me be quiet.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. I like this analysis. Yeah, I think I am very intentional because, and even when I talk to my friends, something as small as I was helping my friend plan his birthday, and I'm like, okay, we need to make a list of what we need to buy. So he starts naming things and I'm like, wait, no, what do you want your party to look like? That's what we have to start with. Like, what is the end goal? So I do, when I'm talking to my friends about anything, something as small as a birthday party, or if they're talking about a business they want to start, I'm like, but what do you see? Because then we can work backwards from there. But if you can't even see it, then what are we doing here? We're like spinning our wheels, because then you're going to start on a path to nowhere. You don't know where you're going. Mm-hmm. So I will say that, like, everything I do, it does have an intention. Every time I post on Instagram, there's an intention behind it. I don't just post randomly, and unless I'm just looking really, really cute. Then I'm like,
it's the random part of the world in the best outfit ever.
Right. Then I'm like, I could just post this. But no, I really do think about intention, and I am very intentional. And I think because of that, like, now a lot of people are like, what are you going to do next? Oh, you've visited every country in the world. Are you going to do this? Are you going to do this? And I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. But when I figure it out, it's going to be something that I'm very intentional about. So even though, and I'm very blessed and grateful that I have publishers, major publishers, coming to me and have been coming to me for over a year asking for a book, I haven't done anything with that because I wasn't feeling it. And I didn't have a clear vision about what that book was. Now I do. Now I found a great publisher. Now we're going to move forward. But and for me, it's okay that it's taken me a year. I had agents putting pressure on me, and then ultimately had to let go because I was like, I don't want to do this. You keep trying to, I don't want to do it. So for me, it has to feel good, and there should be minimal effort. Yeah. That's important to me as well. I want there to be minimal effort. Like, of course, I'm going to do my best and be excellent, but I don't want it to feel difficult, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I hear that your intention is guided by your values, the things that you value. You know how you want to feel, and you know what you want things to look like, but it doesn't have to, you're flexible, as you mentioned before, so it doesn't have to be so specific. So I get it. I get what you're saying. You have another quote that says, be bold enough to use your voice, brave enough to listen to your heart, and strong enough to live the life that you've always imagined. So what is the life that you've always imagined?
Well, me and my friends on a yacht in the Caribbean drinking champagne. Honestly, for me, it's like, okay, so we have this one life, right? I'm trying to make it the best life I've ever had. You know, for me, it's not necessarily, I don't care about material things. You know, so I don't need like the bags and the shoes and all of that. It's about community. So it's about spending as much time as possible with my friends, with my family, doing what I can for them, and really just enjoying my life. Again, like, honestly, if anything seems difficult, I don't want to do it. And I don't even know if that's always right, but I don't. I feel like life is meant to be lived. And we get caught up in this money chase a lot, but I think we really have to think about, why do we need money and how much money do we really need? You know, of course, I acknowledge that a lot of people don't have enough money, for sure. But I think what I've gained from my travels is like just seeing how people live around the world. Americans are hyper obsessed with money and like success and career and, you know, that whole thing. A lot of people in other parts of the world just aren't. Like, I lived in Italy for 3 years. That had a huge effect on my life. La Dolce Vita it's a thing, right? The sweet life. It really is about, there's a good balance of living. And when I first moved, I found it frustrating because I'm just like, nobody's going, what? But you're not going to get this work done. It's 5 and you're leaving at 5 on the dot. Oh, okay. And then we're going for an aperitivo. Okay. I get in at 9 and then we go for morning coffee. So we really don't get started till like 9:45 to 10. And then we take an hour to an hour and 15 minutes for lunch. And then we have afternoon coffee at 3:30. And then we leave at 5. I'm like, y'all got to figure it out. So it took some adjustment in the beginning, but then I was like, I'm here for it. And once you see how other people are living, it sort of makes you reevaluate everything. Like, do my shoes and my dress need to match? I don't know that to be true. So it really changes what you believe life can and should look like.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I know you're fearless. And I know that you believe in yourself. But I want to talk to like the 13-year-old you and ask you, what are some of the things that you've accomplished that you at 13 or 14 never thought that you could accomplish?
Not having a real job. Honestly, like, I grew up, my mother was a registered nurse. My father was a chemist. I don't think I ever could have imagined working for myself. What? Never. Like, because I thought at 13, I probably thought I was going to be a lawyer or a writer or, I don't know, a teacher. I definitely didn't think I would be self-employed. I don't even think my first year out of college, I could have even imagined that I would be self-employed. So that's probably the biggest thing. Like, really taking that leap is intense. Like, that's a leap of faith. Believing that you can figure out how to financially sustain yourself is a major, scary leap of faith. And it's not super easy. Like right now, because what I do want to say is right now, I feel like everyone's like, be an entrepreneur. Da, da, da. I'm like, it's okay to have a 9-to-5. 9-to-5s are great. You know when your check is coming. You've got health care. you can make it work. You know, if you find a job that works for
Hustles
you.
are more possible now than ever. So
Yes.
yeah.
Exactly. And now you can work from home. So it's like, I think if you want to be an entrepreneur, that's great. Understand that it's hard as hell. It's harder than working for someone else. And if you have a 9 to 5, you can shine. You can shine doing that. But I just don't want people to think the only way to have an amazing life is to be an entrepreneur. Because that's definitely, I'm not selling that. I'm never selling that. So I think that's important.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I wanna have enough time to talk a bit about Jet Black and the Catch Me If You Can, but before that, let's just lean in for a second to the process because we can see the end result and then it's like, oh my God, she traveled to all these countries, she did all of that. But let's talk about the process because that's what makes it realistic or achievable for others to accomplish as well. So, how did you, or if you can just give some highlights along the way of the process of going from teaching in the schools and working with the UN to starting the Catch Me If You Can and Jet Black and traveling the world?
Okay, so the Catch Me If You Can started in 2009, actually. It was my blog. And because when I moved to Japan, I started a blog. Nobody was really blogging. It was 2008. And it was a way, because we weren't as connected as we are now. Facebook was out, Twitter had just come out, but not everybody. So for context, the iPhone came out in September 2007, and I moved to Japan in February 2008.
Okay.
So like the world was not connected. Skype had recently come out, but everyone had those cameras on top of their computers. Cameras weren't built into computers. So that's just the context. Apple did have their built-in cameras though then, which I had an iBook, which doesn't exist anymore. So I was able to easily do that through Skype. So that's the context. So being in Japan, I was like, oh man, like how am I going to stay in touch with people? We have Facebook, but I decided to blog. And so I blogged, and then I blogged for a year in Japan. And then in 2009, I took on the moniker of Carmen Sandiego, and I started traveling like crazy. And this is again before a lot of people were really doing a lot of international travel. And I was like getting it. So I started the Catch Me If You Can because people were always like, where are you? And I'm like, yeah, to catch me if you can. And so that Catch Me If You Can was taken from the movie. And so I just added the. So that's how the Catch Me If You Can came about. Yeah, and so I would just travel, and then I went to grad school in London, so it was easy to travel around Europe. It was easy and it was cheap, and I took out extra student loan money to support my travel. And then, yeah, I moved to Benin, did a little bit of travel. I was there, and then I moved to Italy. So again, being back in Europe, I could travel a lot. So when I was in Italy, I worked for the UN. I didn't travel that much for work. And then moving back to DC, because I was having FOMO. I hadn't lived in the US in 7 years. I'd missed like births and funerals and birthdays. And I just felt like I was missing out or missing something. So I moved back to DC. And then while I was in my job in DC in July 2015, I had a friend who was engaged, and he's a celebrity. And I was like, oh, you should go to Africa for your wedding. It's very important that someone like you, a man of influence, we start to change the narrative about the continent. And he was like, okay, plan it. And I was like, okay. So I planned it. And while planning it, I was like, I could totally do this. And that's how Jet Black was born. But thinking of intention, I was like, okay, I want to use this as a vehicle to change the narrative about African countries and countries with large populations of the African diaspora. So Africa, Central and South America, and the Caribbean. So when people asked me to plan trips, someone reached out and was like, oh, I want to go to Thailand. I was like, I don't do that. But if you'll allow me to give you a deck, I can offer something else. So that couple ended up doing Kenya and Mauritius for their wedding, for their honeymoon. So that's really how it started. And I also felt like it was a way to increase economic activity to a lot of these countries who may not necessarily see as much of it as like, a France or a Thailand. So that, again, thinking about intention. So that's how Jet Black started. And then honestly, I left my office job in August of 2015, stumbled a little bit, was trying to figure out what I was really doing with the business, wasn't loving it, had to do a couple of pivots, really found my groove. And then in February of 2017, I was in Bali. Indonesia was my 60th country. And I had always wanted to go to every country in the world. I'm a geography nerd. I've been traveling my whole life. I love encyclopedias and atlases. But in February 2017, I decided I wanted to do it by my 35th birthday. Before, it was always by my 40th, but I cut off 5 years. And that meant I had 2.5 years to travel to 135 countries.
Wow.
Which is insane. Like, I'm like, why did I do that? That was insane. But it was just something I wanted to do. And then I became obsessed. And then, like, the logistics were difficult, but it kind of became an obsession with, like, how do I figure out how to go to all of these countries and get visas? And it was insane, but it was incredibly rewarding, obviously. And the thing is, honestly, when I started out, it was just like, oh, I want to go to every country in the world. Oh, I can be the first Black woman to do it. And then as I went on and people were picking up and the following was building and media was picking up, it became so much bigger. Literally, it started out as, I just want to go to every country in the world. Whether or not I had Instagram, I would have done it in my lifetime. Well, by my 40th, because that's the goal I had set for myself in my early 20s. But it became so much bigger because it began to mean something to so many more people. So I became just the vessel, right? And just the messages that I got from people and the things that people would say to me in person, it just became so incredible. And I remember I was in Mali, country 154 of 195. So I still had 41 countries. People are like, you're in the home stretch. I'm like, where's the home stretch? And I was in the market. I was having a bad time. I remember I called my friend and I was like, why am I doing this? I don't want to do this anymore. I'm going home. And I was in the market with this photographer I'd met, and he's telling these guys about the journey, and they're like, what? Like, c'est impossible. It's not possible. C'est pas vrai. It's not true. And then one guy said, c'est pas pour toi, c'est pour nous. It's not for you, it's for us. Ooh. And when I tell you, that fueled me. And I want to go back to Mali because I told them I'm going to come back, and we said we're going to celebrate. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to find them in the market. My friend knows them, so I know that I can find this group of guys. And that changed so much for me because I was like, Jessica, this has nothing to do with you. Like, all of these challenges you've overcome, all of these opportunities that have been placed in your way, like, or that, all these opportunities that you've had, it's not for you. It's for everybody else. It's to help other people to see what truly is possible. A friend of mine just sent me a message and was like, her and her son play a game, like, what if? Her son said, what if someone went to every country in the world? And she was like, someone has. And then he's like, what? No, it's impossible. And she's like, no, I actually know a woman who traveled to every single country in the world. Wow. And she showed her son. And so now he, like, looks up a ton of stuff, and he spent 2 hours reading articles and things like that. And I realized that in my life, everything that I've achieved, and it's not for me. It's for everyone else, and I'm grateful that I can be the vessel for this, but it's so much bigger than me.
Wow. I mean, drops mic right there. Because you just took my last question, what keeps you motivated? And that's it, right? That it's not, you don't look at it as something that you're just doing. You see the bigger picture of how you inspire and how you influence by just being you and showing up. And I just really admire the way you are guided by knowing yourself. I recognize so much awareness that you have within yourself, and leaning in and asking yourself, what do I need? What do I want? And letting that be your guidance. Mm-hmm. So in ending, and you just said everything so well and wrapped it up with a bow, but kids are going through a lot these days, and things are so uncertain. And however, we're resilient as a people. We're resilient. Kids in general, as just human beings, they're resilient. So in closing, what message do you have, or would you share, or piece of wisdom from somewhere else in the world would you impart upon the viewers, the kids, the hopeful ones of the world?
Find gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
I think things are so uncertain and so difficult for so many people, but find gratitude. There's something that you have in your life that you can be grateful. Sometimes it's hard. You know, I always challenge myself to do 5 things that I'm grateful for. Sometimes it's as easy as I'm grateful to have 4 functioning limbs. Some people don't have that. If you can climb out of your bed, stand up, walk to the bathroom, walk to the fridge, you need to be grateful for that. You have a fridge, you know? So I think whatever it is, in times when it gets really hard, find gratitude and challenge yourself to think of 5 things that you're grateful for, you know, and I think that if you can do that every single day, you can continue to build on that, because we, you know, in this stillness, even through loss, you have to find gratitude. I've lost people, and I find myself saying, you know what? I'm grateful I had them while I had them. And that's all I can do. It's, of course, we mourn, and it can be very difficult to let go, but you have to find the gratitude in everything.
Yeah. That hits me right in my heart. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Jessica. This was a fantastic talk with you. And I'm so glad that we were able to have this, and that we'll be able to share this with so many people. So where do folks find you in the end?
Yes, you can find me all over the internet at the Catch Me If You Can. And that is also the website. Jet Black, you can find at globaljetblack.com. And I launched an e-commerce built business at the end of last year called The Catch. So you can find that at thisisthecatch.com. And it's full of goodies that I found during my travels. And now, because I can't travel, I'm starting to design goods with artisans in other countries. So,
And your rings are your designs, right?
yes, they are.
Oh,
You can find those. Yeah, we have a product launching really, really soon. So yeah.
oh, and life continues, and you just keep leaning in and doing what you love.
Pivot. You pivot.
I love it. Keep pivoting. All right. So you know where you can find me and Molly when you go back. Just let me know.
Yes, 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 yes. And Molly has amazing textiles. There's so much there.
Oh my God. Incredible. Well, thank you so much. QuartzWellnessCollective.com, at the Flow Coach. Thank you guys for watching, and check out Jessica Nabongo, The Catch Me If You Can, and Jet Black. And you may see us on the road together at some point later on, because I think I might need her to plan a trip for me. All right. Thank you so much.
Amazing.